speaking to the barbs and the barbs only, but I'm speaking to the barbs that have common sense. Can you explain why Nicki would end up supporting Charlie Kirk's wife and his legacy and go on in, and why is she taking this whole turn with Trump and stuff? Can you just explain to me why? And I don't need you to comment.
The rap game isn't just buzzing this time. It feels like it's cracking down the middle. And it's not over albums, diss tracks, or chart wars. This chaos ignited for a completely different reason. Nicki Minaj stepped forward and openly declared her loyalty to the MAGA movement, and in that single moment, the internet practically detonated. Timelines flooded. Comment sections spiraled. What should have been a simple statement turned into a cultural earthquake that nobody saw coming. Fans, bloggers, and industry insiders didn't hesitate. The backlash was immediate and ruthless, with people dissecting every angle, why now, what pushed her there, and how far the fallout could spread. Speculation replaced facts. Motives were questioned. And the longer the silence stretched between her explanations, the louder the noise became. It wasn't just debate anymore. It felt like a public trial happening in real time. The reaction has been fierce. Loyal supporters tried to defend her. Critics circled like sharks. Even fans who had ridden for her for years suddenly sounded unsure, conflicted, almost betrayed. Conversations about image, strategy, and identity started dominating the narrative. Sure, every artist has the right to their own beliefs, but the way this shift rolled out, abrupt and unapologetic, carved a visible fracture straight through her fanbase. And with every passing day, more former supporters quietly stepped back, separating themselves from the brand they once championed. At the same time, behind the scenes, competitors weren't blinking. They were watching, waiting, measuring the damage. Some saw opportunity where others saw chaos. And one name keeps surfacing in the whispers, Cardi B. Sources close to her camp suggest she isn't surprised at all. In fact, they claim she's been expecting this collapse, like a domino she knew would.
The utmost respect and admiration for our president. He has, I don't know if he even knows this, but he's given so many people hope that there's a chance to beat the bad guys and to win and to do it with your head held high and your integrity intact.
Nicki's latest interviews didn't calm the storm. They poured gasoline straight onto it. Every appearance, every off-the-cuff comment, every carefully framed quote only made the backlash louder. When she began openly praising former President Donald Trump, speaking about his strength, his discipline, his so-called leadership, the reaction wasn't just surprise, it was disbelief. For a lot of people watching, it felt less like a political opinion and more like a full-blown transformation happening in real time. Suddenly, the narrative around her wasn't music, tours, or awards anymore. It was politics, power, allegiances. Her name started trending in spaces that had nothing to do with hip-hop. The lines between celebrity influence, political messaging, and internet outrage blurred together into one messy spectacle no one could look away from. What used to be a pop culture conversation turned into something heavier, sharper, almost dangerous. And now, whether she planned it or not, Nicki Minaj has stepped into a brand new chapter that's rewriting how people talk about her career, her judgment, and the legacy she'll eventually leave behind. If anything, the noise is only building. This isn't the end of the conversation. It feels like the opening scene. Nicki Minaj has now fully and publicly tied herself to Donald Trump. And that's where the shock really hits. Because to longtime followers, this doesn't feel like growth, it feels like a complete reversal. A dramatic pivot that clashes hard with everything she once said. Back in 2020, she didn't sound supportive at all. She criticized Trump's immigration stance, questioned his policies, and made it clear she wanted nothing to do with backing him politically. Her tone back then wasn't neutral, it was firm, almost confrontational. She also spoke passionately about misogyny and entertainment.
Full-blown MAGA on Twitter, or X, right? And I think it's because she's scared of deportation. She is starting to get worried with this immigration policy because, mind you, she's been in the United States since she was 5 years old, and she's still not a citizen. And pre-COVID, she even talked about how hard it is to get citizenship in this country. You can be a multi-millionaire. You can be a celebrity. And it's still a hard process to get citizenship. It's easier just to renew your green card, right? She has gone so far to turn against her own fan base. She literally, like, the LGBTQ is like her ride or dies, right? They do all her dirty work for her, right? And she went on to say that, like, trans people are not normal.
For years, her words painted Trump as the very embodiment of what she rejected, a walking symbol of power abused, influence misused, and systems stacked against the very people she claimed to fight for. That image felt consistent, almost foundational to how fans understood her voice. And then, almost overnight, the script flipped. By 2026, the same man she once criticized was suddenly being praised. Publicly. Repeatedly. She started calling him one of the greatest leaders the country had ever seen, dropping compliments in interviews, doubling down at live events, and echoing the sentiment across her social feeds like it was something she'd believed all along. To outsiders, it didn't feel like evolution. It felt like a hard turn with no warning signs. The kind of turn that makes people stop and ask what's really going on behind the curtain. Because reversals like that don't happen quietly. They spark questions. About motive. About timing. About what someone stands to gain. And the deeper people looked, the stranger the shift began to feel. Things escalated when she started speaking about Christian persecution in Nigeria, framing the issue through a broader, almost ideological lens that closely mirrored conservative talking points. It wasn't just concern anymore, it sounded like alignment. Like she was deliberately inching closer to a specific political base. That moment set off alarms. To many watching, it felt calculated, a signal flare aimed straight at the MAGA crowd. And now, with her latest declarations out in the open, the transformation feels complete. The music industry is dissecting it. Political commentators are debating it. Even her own fans are split down the middle, trying to figure out what this reinvention really means and how far it could reshape her future. One thing's certain, this isn't just a phase people can ignore. It's changing the entire conversation around her name. At first, her supporters rushed to defend her. They argued she was simply speaking from the heart about Nigeria, a country she's publicly shown love for before. They framed it as compassion, not politics. A personal cause, not a partisan statement. For a brief second, that explanation held. But then the focus shifted again. And that's when things got messy. She suddenly zeroed in on California politics, taking direct shots at Governor Gavin Newsom after the state passed new protections centered on student privacy. The law stated that schools wouldn't be required to notify parents if a student chose to use a different name or pronoun, a safeguard designed for kids who might not feel safe being open at home. What could have been a quiet policy debate exploded into a cultural battlefield. Supporters of the law argued it was about protection, about shielding vulnerable teens from potential harm. But conservative voices fired back hard, insisting parents deserved full control over every decision involving their children. The issue split the public straight down the middle. And when Nicki stepped into that fire, loudly picking a side, it stopped looking accidental. It looked intentional. And suddenly, this wasn't just about music anymore. It was politics, identity, and a superstar willingly walking into the most divisive fight possible, with the whole world watching.
I mean, I can't tell people what to post or what to say, but Nicki Minaj damn sure needs to stay away from anything, posting anything about kids, trans or otherwise. She supports a dude that is on the Epstein list 1,000 times. She's actually married to a registered sex offender, a pedophile. She shouldn't be able to watch Jason Kidd or listen to Kid and Play or New Kids on the Block. Hell, she got to walk around the aisle with Cabbage Patch Kids on it. And she damn sure should stay away from Sour Patch Kids. And it ain't Governor Newsom Nicki needs to be worried about. It's Chris.
Right in the thick of the chaos, Nicki jumped online and poured her thoughts straight into the fire. She didn't hedge or soften it. She posted bluntly that no sane adult should ever campaign for policies that, in her eyes, put children at risk. It was short, sharp, and within minutes, it detonated across timelines. Conservative commentators grabbed her words like ammunition, reposting them, praising her, framing her as brave for saying what others wouldn't. But on the other side, progressive voices tore into her just as fast, accusing her of fear-mongering and oversimplifying a sensitive issue. What started as a discussion about student protection suddenly spiraled into something bigger, louder, uglier. And the more people replayed her statement, the clearer it became that her language mirrored talking points already circulating in conservative spaces. That's when the tone changed. Because now it didn't feel like an opinion. It felt like alignment. Her public image shifted almost overnight, tilting further away from the persona fans thought they knew. Debates about her evolving political identity exploded everywhere, podcasts, blogs, group chats. And inside her own fan base, the cracks started widening. People weren't just disagreeing anymore. They were splitting into camps. Still, her core supporters pushed back hard. They argued she wasn't being political at all, she was being a mother. They said her comments came from a place of parental instinct, that she's always talked about wanting to protect her child and stayed deeply involved in his life. To them, it was concern, not ideology. For a moment, that defense held the line. Then came Phoenix. And everything escalated. When she showed up at the Turning Point USA memorial event, smiling wide, stepping onto that stage as a featured guest speaker, the optics hit differently. Cameras flashed. Clips spread. Meanwhile, several Black creators tied to the same organization weren't given nearly the same spotlight. The imbalance was obvious. And people noticed fast. Questions started flying, especially with Candace Owens reportedly distancing herself from the group at the same time. It made the whole thing feel calculated. Like the organization wasn't just hosting her, they were positioning her. Almost like they needed a new, recognizable face to connect with audiences they'd struggled to reach before. And to many viewers, Nicki's presence didn't look like representation. It looked strategic. A celebrity chess piece moved into place. A familiar name used to soften a controversial brand. The message was clear and uncomfortable. Fame can be weaponized. Influence can be borrowed. And one superstar can shift perception faster than any campaign ad ever could. On stage, Nicki leaned into themes of resilience. She talked about struggle, about how life can trick you into thinking setbacks are permanent. She framed adversity like a test you're meant to survive. Then she pivoted, praising the president directly, highlighting how he'd weathered endless personal and public attacks. The comparison wasn't subtle. It fit the event's messaging almost too perfectly. And in that moment, the alignment didn't feel accidental anymore. It felt deep, intentional, locked in. Clips of the speech spread like wildfire. Critics went in harder than ever. Longtime observers sounded exhausted, disappointed, even betrayed. And her supporters? Split straight down the middle. Some cheered her courage. Others quietly stepped back. Because now everyone was asking the same question: was this conviction or calculation? Belief or branding? Whatever the answer was, one thing became impossible to ignore. Nicki Minaj wasn't just brushing up against politics anymore. She was standing right in the center of the storm.
What it's shown me personally is sometimes, even in the worst feeling times in your life, you think that you're never going to come back from it. But you do. And our president shows that. He's been through every single thing a person could be through publicly. Having to constantly be lied on. It's not really that funny until you are in that person's shoes that's being lied on. You'll never understand what it feels like. That person is a human being. They have a family who has to read those lies. And it's just not.
Regardless of where anyone stands politically, that Turning Point USA appearance marked a clear before and after moment. It wasn't just another event on her schedule. It felt like a line in the sand. From that night forward, the way people interpreted her every word changed, and the backlash that followed only intensified. On stage, Nicki spoke about exhaustion. About the emotional weight of constantly being misrepresented. She described what it feels like to wake up every day to headlines, rumors, and accusations that twist reality, reminding the crowd that none of it feels funny when you have a family forced to absorb the fallout with you. She insisted people underestimate how brutal misinformation can be until it hits their own doorstep, until online jokes turn into real-life consequences. But while she was talking about pain, the optics told a different story. Because the moment audiences saw her standing there, repeating political rhetoric that had never once been tied to her brand before, confusion spread like wildfire. Social feeds filled with the same question: is this actually her, or a version of her crafted for approval? It didn't sound familiar. It didn't feel organic. It felt rehearsed, like a new script handed to an old star. Then came her appearance alongside Erica Kirk, paired with remarks many viewers interpreted as openly hostile toward the transgender community. That's when the temperature spiked. Especially because a huge portion of her fan base identifies as LGBTQ, the very people who had championed her for years. To them, the shift wasn't just political. It felt personal, sudden, unexplained, almost like betrayal. And that's why the frustration exploded so fast. Soon after, whispers turned into accusations. Some began speculating that this political turn wasn't ideological at all, that it might be tied to something much closer to home. Her husband, Kenneth Petty. His legal history has trailed behind their relationship like a shadow, resurfacing again and again, often overshadowing her biggest career wins. And just as things started quiet,